County Board of Supervisors meeting, recorded Tuesday, April 28, 2020.
We'll call the Portage County Board to order. Roll call. Go ahead.
Charlie Gussel. Barry Jakowski. Dave Medine. Don Jankowski. Joan Hano. Can she hear me? She's on here. Yeah. Okay. Dave Laddick. Mildred Neville. Bob Gifford. Mike Splinter. Chris Dubeck. Ray Reeser. Dennis Robbie. Stan Pataki.
Here.
Anton Ande. Jerry Zastro.
Present.
Julie Morrow. Chai Mua. Al Haga.
Here.
Matt Jakowski. Vinnie Moresi. Larry Rakowski.
Here.
Scott Soik. Daniel Martinson. I think he's on there, right?
Here.
There.
Sorry.
Nope, that's okay. Melissa Johnson.
Here.
And Jeannie Dodge. Here. Okay. 25 present.
Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation by Supervisor Mua.
I'll come up here. I realize the folks at home couldn't hear us if we weren't up here. So, my people, we believe in calling upon our ancestors and different spirits to guide us in hard times. So today, I call upon our ancestors, the spirit of this land that Portage County is on, and the spirit of the skies that to come and watch us, guide us, and protect us. Please protect the health and wellness of our residents during this pandemic. Please guide the minds and hearts of those on this board so we can make the best decision for the people of Portage County right now. As we can see, this pandemic has impacted communities of color, especially Black communities, at a much higher rate. Guide us to look at the inequalities in our existing systems and help us find solutions to fix or alternatives to these systems so that everyone in our community can access safety. Please watch our first responders, frontline workers, and every brave individual who are still working to make sure we have everything we need to survive during this time. Women, queer, and trans folks make up a majority of our frontline and essential workers and are still the main caretakers of their families. Give strength to all of these individuals as this pandemic has also become a gender justice issue. Lastly, come bless all residents in Portage County in this time so we can become stronger neighbors, friends, and leaders, as our community can only get through this by helping and lifting each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here's the amendment if you want us to do that.
Read.
Oh, okay.
Review and approval of minutes, April 21st of 2020 County Board minutes. I'll take motion by Supervisor Barry Jakowski, seconded by Supervisor Dubeck. Before we take a vote on that, we have an amendment.
Yeah, so we will need an amendment to reflect in the minutes that we had 4 supervisors attending the meeting remotely via the WebEx.
Motion by Supervisor Laddick, seconded by Supervisor Moresi. Any other discussion on the amendment? All those in favor with the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment carries. Back to the original motion as amended on the minutes. Any other discussion? All those in favor with aye? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved.
Aye.
Thank you. Presentation. Nursing Home Administrator Marcia McDonald, Health Care Center update. You want to just use the one back there, Marcia? Or come up in the front, whichever you're more comfortable with.
What would work best for?
It's up to you.
I can come up front. Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity to be present tonight, and I was graciously offered the opportunity to appear virtually. However, I wanted the honor of seeing you face to face and to sharing heartfelt thanks from our Portage County Health Care Center team. And I want to just start by saying I'll be brief, but I was hoping to have addressed you prior to the COVID pandemic, but I truly believe now that it worked out very, very well, and that I have the opportunity tonight to be here to share with you the true journey of our Portage County Health Care Center team. If you can't understand me with my mask, just give me a high five. But I want to just begin by saying the reason I say that so succinctly is prior to our Friday the 13th March closure, I would have been very, very proud to tell you we were full force, a great team, enjoying every day of life. We had financial struggles, but the team truly was unified. We were running an average daily census then of about 54 to 58 with our budget at 58. Our picture changed on March 13th, and it was with great strength that our team selected to go into COVID restrictions very early. Probably one of the most difficult days of my career. However, as I stand here tonight, I want to tell you I think it began to outline the future of our Portage County Health Care Center, because what I saw happen on March 13th, I'm going to be a little emotional about it, was the caregivers and the team that I worked with turned from whatever role they played, dietary aide, housekeeper, director of nursing, into truly superheroes. And you might see signs around, heroes work here. The people that enter that facility every day from March 13th on truly are heroes, and they're helping me define where I feel we should take our Portage County Health Care Center. During this period of time, because of our very close admission policy and procedure, we have stayed event-free. We have had 8 tests, 8 negatives. Today we ran our 9th one in a proactive manner. I'm looking for the best outcome for that as well. But what succinctly has happened in my operational picture is we were going from an average opportunity of caring for about 1,633 patient days per month. This month, we have a couple days left, but I anticipate that will be 1,378 patient days where people are actually living with us. During this time also, we've seen a dramatic change in the payer source. I think all of us know that everyone's finances are a little bit in flux, and so our average Medicare daily census now is at a little bit less than 10, 9.6. What we've done within the building, and I think it's really important to know, is all of our Sunrise Garden rehab beds we've designated as a mini potential COVID unit, which the hospital has been extremely pleased about. We're not operating in that manner yet because there has been no surge, but that unit is set up and designed to click into gear should we need to. And then our other 2 longer-term wings have stayed consistently at 20 and 20, which is our goal of 20, 20, and 20. However, on that unit that we're in high precautions on, we've been running between 8 and 12, purely because most of the people are kept in high level of infection control. So the message I want to bring tonight is the new kind of life began to develop on March 13th. We really recognized not only that we're operating in an antiquated building, but that when we come through this, we'll have many new lessons that we've learned. I'm here tonight to ask for your support as we come out of this, because it will be a matter of crucial time to decide which path the Portage County Health Care Center takes, because during this time, just a very brief overview, it costs about $440 a day for a resident to live at Portage County Health Care Center. Our average reimbursement between $180 and $200 a day. So it doesn't take a lot of vision to see that it's about a $200 deficit a day, which we've been working greatly on uniquely handling. However, with the implementation of the high isolation, the PPE, the one-on-one care that we often need to provide because we do not have family and relatives. I think that we're needing to really batten down the hatch to come out of this, to really see how are we going to creatively handle this new changing financial picture. What I've attempted to do in just a little nutshell tonight is just start kind of include a couple of questions. And whenever I present to an audience, I always like to know what people consider old. So I don't know if it's appropriate to have anybody call out an answer, but if I were to say we take care of elderly, what numbers kind of pop into your head? Okay. Well, I just want to share with you that the average clients that we're serving now go anywhere from 50 to 104. So when we talk about diversification in trying to meet these needs, the social psychological needs of a 50-year-old and a 104-year-old are greatly different. The second thing that I offer out as a question is I think people knew that our mission at Portage County Health Care Center was to provide a wide range of rehabilitative and long-term care needs to the community. My question would be, how many of you might agree that our mission statement has greatly taken on new light? It truly has, and I want to define that in that just from a brief overview. I was planning a PowerPoint before, but our Caregiver Roadmap used to look like this. People would come to us, they'd rehab, they'd go to alternate facilities. What we're seeing emerge out of the COVID-19 is that many small facilities, et cetera, are not only struggling financially, but the reality of the type of care that they're able to provide is really coming to the forefront because it takes a skilled, technical sort of mind. Coming out of COVID-19, this roadmap's probably going to have one or two little options, but a lot of people have learned to either shelter at home with a home care plan or come to us in a skilled setting. So the myriad of 30 other types of assisted living are really in a very tenuous spot. The future is yet to be seen, but I think people have learned through telehealth, et cetera, they are at home or they have skilled needs. And those in-between settings are kind of becoming nebulous to people. So our mission and values along with that are kind of altering in that we may become a longer-term residence for people. And then third, I just want to voice out there, and again, I think I would find most people answering my question, yes. How many people feel truly that the care roles that we provide have taken on a new altered status? And I'll give you an example. A director of nursing on March 12th versus a director of nursing on March 14th, two job roles. Director of nursing, COVID-19 director of nursing. Food service provider prior to Friday the 13th. Food service provider, happy, putting trays out, serving in the dining room. March 13th into the 14th, in-room dining, many disposable items, personalized service. So everyone all of a sudden had two job overlays. That defined to me also a new realization of truly deep talents that people had. During this transition, the true heroes have stayed with us, and I'm proud to say we're one of the few facilities in the state that is not experiencing scheduling challenges, nor are we experiencing sad attitudes. The morale is higher than it's ever been, which gives me great hope for how we come through this because people are going to want to see the success. They're not going to be downtrodden and overly emotionally troubled by it. We've seen several quick points that I want to leave you with. Number 1 point is they're eager to see what this roadmap is going to be. Daily we find new creative ways since March 13th to bring life to every resident. In fact, I shared with County Executive Holman, I believe the other day, I'd love to be on the transitional Open Up the County plan because our residents who sadly miss their family, the opposite, they still miss their family very much, but at 90, 94, their routines are new. They are having more in-room personal stimulation than we had our first resident council Zoom meeting. These people are ecstatic, experiences that they've never had before. Will they welcome their family with open arms? You bet. But they've had a new, generous, so to speak, open to them for who they are as residents and care recipients. Second point, I want to say we've become a self-contained community. Since March 13th, we've had 2 outside services which Tammy, my Director of Nursing, has allowed me to come in, hospice services. Other than that, we've been doing it with WebEx and truly providing care. Those 2 hospice services were greatly needed, not for COVID situations. It was very successful, and we linked highly with the community as far as all the funeral homes have allowed very positive experiences. But we have become really recognized in-house how under that roof, there again, some true heroes and talents. And then again, a true reality of my linking with finances in that the finance picture has taken on a completely different meaning in that we've had to get additional, I think, rely on not only how we use our supplies, but how we might replenish those coffers. So we're coming up with a lot of creative ways to think about the future so that we can solidify when we come through this, present to you a true upgraded use of our talents, combined with the finances available, combined with where the senior housing market is going to go, so that the recommendations that we make to you as a Board of Supervisors will be wholeheartedly built on fact, finances, need, and also the need of our community in being one that, as was offered just when we opened up, one of really uniting and standing by each other. So the points that I'd like to take away is that I am always available to you 24/7 in a trusting manner to shed light on the future of the healthcare center as we come through this financially. Second, all of our team members are there with open ears for your community questions and answers. They want to hear questions and concerns and discussion of the future. And most importantly, that they truly have developed a deep awareness of what it means to them to serve. So I leave with you as we come through this. We're in the middle of a CLA audit, and our committee is going to look to the future, that we learn from this experience those 3 things: the trust that we have in each of you to help guide us with our financial picture. Secondly, that the hearing and the communication be all on the same page as far as our needs and what is really best for the community. And then that great awareness as we serve, that we're going to come through this with a different picture of skilled nursing care, continuum of care, and how people select to function at home, where they've been living sheltered in place for near 60 days now. So again, I value this time in front of you to let you know that everyone is safe and well and as happy as can be, and that I'm hoping that as our board, as you state when you open each time, will be devoted to making the very best possible supportive decisions for our committee, as well as for the well-being of that great wide range of people that we truly serve at our healthcare center. So I thank you. I hope I might have a minute for questions.
Before we get on, I'd like everybody to just please join me in a round of appreciation for all they do there, for Marcia and her wonderful staff.
From our team.
Supervisor Medine.
I've been around observing the healthcare center, in those days Portage County Home, well, since the 70s, back to, well, you may remember Marge and then Hagan and the whole group of people. Very good administrators. My observation is through these years is that you are the one that has the confidence and the appreciation of all 3 segments that are important: the staff, the clients, and the county board.
Thank you.
I, for one, recognize that, and regardless of what the long-term future is of the facility, you have exercised extreme caution, and yet, I'm going to say, love for the community and for the people. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor McGee. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's really been an honor. Yes.
Supervisor Gifford.
Well, hi, given that we know that about half of our counties are in the status of what they call aging out, the average age is going up, and the young workforce is going away. Given that, plus the fact that we see from COVID-19 that the national healthcare system is really rather frail and fragile going into this. Do you see on the horizon from our legislature, from the DHS, from people that are concerned about these things, any effort to provide the counties that have nursing homes, if you know, with the resources needed to overcome that gap you're talking about, $200 a day gap?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see anything, is there anything on the horizon? Is there any hope out there?
Oh, well, I always believe that there's hope. It's an extremely involved but great question. What I want to tell you is that I think that it's opened the eyes of many people that there is truly a need, because people, I don't believe, quite looked inside our doors from the Madison region. This has allowed me great opportunity almost on a daily basis to interact with direct Department of Health and Social Services. We have another meeting next week via WebEx, because, and I'm tooting the team's horn in that to be as infection control free and meet the skilled needs, plus have a plan to open a mini high-level infection control, has drawn attention to our facility. So if there ever is a freeing of dollars, it might well be now. I think the reality side of it is that everybody is also fighting equally in a more tenacious manner, because all of their needs have become well known. I do think two things are happening that I'm excited about. One, people have really identified where the niches are. People are going to have, I think, greater flexibility in their home care due to the use of telehealth. And then the other end of that is people are also recognizing that perhaps all of these in-between segments, when it really hits the pavement, are not quite equipped to meet some of those skill needs, because we've seen the mini RCACs, residential cares, the assisted livings without any licensure are called adult homes, or the community-based residential facilities. Very sadly, in Clark County right now, they're caring for residents, but they're not trained and geared up. So I'm hoping that the state will see a true skilled nursing facility needs dollars to function well. So again, I think we're all in that extremely nebulous state, but I'm hoping if there's ever a chance to loosen up some awareness, that it might be now. The insurance companies are all struggling desperately during this, because there are going to be some very large cost-effective payouts that they're needing to make. But if ever we have an opportunity to prove the basic need, it's now.
I believe it's awareness when we see the money.
Supervisor Laddick, and then anybody from home that would like to chime in as well after that.
Well, thanks for the presentation.
Yeah.
Can you expand a little bit on the CLA study that is being done or is completed, and what the recommendations, findings of it?
The CLA study was approved by our committee, and it was starting to get underway. We had 2 visits from the CLA auditors, and then March 13th, they had done 2 previous steps. One, they had done a market survey, which basically now is on complete hold because many of those occupancy things have changed. They also came in and interviewed each of our department leaders to gather internal visions, which was, again, prior to the March 13th happening. So Supervisor Laddick, what we've agreed to do, and I'll be speaking with the CLA team again on May 1st, Friday, is they've kind of put a hold on, they were midstream with a gathering of information, because what they saw when they went to the other assisted livings as early as mid-January into their visit with us on February 13th, I believe it was, is a completely different picture. So we're going to revisit with the help of our committee how we take that somewhat outdated pre-COVID information, still make it useful to the changing healthcare picture. And speaking with Mr. Pierre directly, had a wonderful conversation. He is very well aware and extremely sensitive to the precarious state it placed us in, and I believe will welcome the committee's input where they want to take it from here for taking the data, whether they gather new data or just what we're guided by our committee to do. so there had been no formalized report. Phase 2 had been completed, market study, internal audit, and then it was going to be the compilation and recommendation, and boom, the entire market changed. Thank you.
Anybody online or at home have any comments or questions for Marcia? Nope.
I just like to, sorry, this is Dan Martinson. Just like to thank her for all of her hard work. I think that's an incredibly valuable asset to our community, and she's done a wonderful job.
Thank you. And tomorrow we're meeting as a team at 9, and they look forward to a rebuttal of our conversation tonight. I will certainly share your thanks.
No.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcia.
Next is Mark Kudros, Rent Ready Wisconsin Homelessness Certificate Program.
Hi, thanks for having me here this evening. My name is Mark Cordes. I work for the City of Stevens Point in the Community Development Department. I'm also a board member for HPPP, which is Hunger Poverty Prevention of Portage County. It's a local 501c3 that does the Empty Bowls fundraiser each year. And the Rent Ready program is something brand new. It's never been done anywhere in the United States before. And it's based on a conversation I had exactly a year ago today with Bob Guam from the Salvation Army. And he's also a member of HPPP. And while we do that one fundraiser each year, he was looking for more of a boots-on-the-ground type project, something that really made a difference in the community. And so I wanted to do something similar, and I asked Bob what he thought, and he said homelessness. You know, really there's a need to do something with homelessness and people that are housing insecure in the community, because that's what he deals with on a daily basis at the Salvation Army. So over the course of the last year, actually, the Rent Ready program came together pretty quickly, and we put a few people through it last year. 3 people have been in housing. One has been in housing for a little over 10 months, and they've all been successfully placed. The program in a nutshell, keep it brief, the 5-minute elevator speech, but the program in a nutshell is an opportunity for people that are homeless because they have something in their background. They have a bankruptcy, they have an eviction, they have a criminal charge, something that's keeping them out of the rental market. So people like that should be in housing, you know, many of these people have jobs, they just can't find anyone to rent to them. And if they find somebody to rent to them, the other thing I've noticed in the city of Stevens Point is something called predatory landlording. So it's landlords that buy very decrepit properties and rent them at usually about 50% higher than market rates, and they target people with checkered pasts because they don't have any other rental options. You know, they may be living at the Point Motel, they may be living at the Blue Top Motel, maybe living with friends, things like that. But their opportunity within the rental market is typically to go to a landlord that, because of their high risk nature, is willing to rent to them in a usually a substandard property at an extremely high rate. The other issue that I've noticed is because these properties are in need of maintenance, the renters are many times afraid to call us as a city to do an inspection because they're afraid they're going to be removed from the property. And if they get evicted again, they have nowhere else to go. So essentially the program starts out with a training. The training takes place at the Salvation Army. It's a 3-hour class in which we teach them about basic landlord-tenant relationships, what the rights of the tenant are, what the rights of the landlord are. And then the second part of that training is them working on what's called a renter portfolio. Under fair housing law, a landlord can only ask specific questions of a tenant, but a tenant can disclose whatever they want. So a landlord's going to do a background check. They're going to see anything criminal. They're going to see an eviction. They're going to see a bankruptcy. The renter portfolio is their opportunity to say why these things happened, what they've done to correct those things, and even offer references above and beyond what's asked for. We just did a class online just a week ago, and a young mother who is actually living with her mom now because she has nowhere else to live. She was a waitress, lost her job, and she has 2 children, but she has a drug charge. So she has a parole officer. She's going to put her parole officer as her reference on there because, again, this is going to show up in a background check. But as part of that renter portfolio, it's their opportunity to explain what happened in their past and why and what they've done to make amends to that. If there's drug and alcohol issues, if they've been enrolled in AA, perhaps offer their sponsor as a reference, things like that. Once they graduate from the class, after they complete the renter portfolio, again, they would meet with a counselor one-on-one, and if that's satisfactory, they would become certified in the class or in Rent Ready, and then they're eligible for rent guarantee. The rent guarantee means if a landlord rents to this person, HPPP would stand behind them should they default on rent for up to 3 months' rent. No money in this program goes to the tenant, but there would be a rent guarantee. Now, the landlords were involved in this program, Central Wisconsin apartment owners, and they're business people like anyone. And again, these are high-risk renters. So even though they're going through this training course, they're learning how to be good renters, they're explaining what they've done and to make amends for things in their past, there still is an element of risk. So this is something that they wanted was some sort of guarantee. And we have 6 church sponsors that have pooled money into a rent assurance pool. And again, should there be a default, we would cover that up to 3 months. 3 months is typically the amount of time it takes to evict a person from property. And post-placement, so the church sponsors we've been working with, we've been training mentors with the church sponsors. And each person that graduates from the program, once they're placed into housing, they will receive a sponsor, a faith-based sponsor. And it's essentially a mentor relationship. Again, no money exchanges hands there. But the idea is with many people that are in this program, they have troubled backgrounds and many of their influences in their life have not been positive, and that's the reason they went down these roads. And so the idea is with mentors is to get them off on a good start. But one thing we've noticed when we place people in housing, and churches have been a good resource for this, is they have no furniture. So many times there's donations of furniture, used furniture, things like that to furnish the house, or the apartment, excuse me. Our goal is to graduate between 16 and 24 people of the program. Our first class is in February. We had 5 people in this online class. Just because of the strange nature of what's going on, we had 2 people that are going through the class right now. So that's 7, and we're doing the class every other month right now. Longer term, bigger picture, this is something that I think can work in other communities. We've had contact from a number of other communities, from areas in Chicago and as far away as Kansas City. I've been asked to speak at the Wisconsin Economic Development Conference in October in La Crosse about the program as well. Just wanted to come here and give you an update as to what we were doing and what the program entailed, and then answer any questions you might have. Again, thank you for this opportunity.
I met Mark through Supervisor Gifford, had passed some stuff on. There was a couple of things that I remember Mark passing on. Maybe one of the things that I had read was this isn't a handout, it's a hand up. And that caught my eye right at the beginning. But something you had told me before, someone who's homeless doesn't necessarily mean they're living off the street. The example of people that are living in the motels, and you said that they could be paying $600-700 a month. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah. So that ranges anywhere from $600 to $750 a month. There was a lady we had helped. She had been living in one of the local hotels for 4 years. Her big hurdle, I think she had I can't remember if she had any eviction or bankruptcy in her background. She was on fixed income because of a disability, and because of that one item in her background in her income, she was unable to get into housing because there's a typical income ratio to rent ratio that a landlord will look at, and it's usually 30 to 40% of your income. Can't be more than that to cover the rent. And because of her limited, I think she was around $900 a month. But she'd been paying $650 a month for rent at the hotel for 4 years. So in this particular case, we went to the local landlord, and we said, look, she's been, for the last 4 years, she's been paying $650 a month per rent on $900 worth of income. And the apartment she was going into was $600 a month. So again, she was going to save $50 a month. On top of it, she would then have a kitchen in her apartment that she could cook versus just living out of a hotel room for the last 4 years. She's been in housing since, I think, last fall, about September of last year, successfully. But yeah, the idea is exactly a hand up, not a handout. People that go through this program need to help themselves, need to show how they've helped themselves. We're willing to provide the support to walk alongside them through the whole process, including after they get in housing. The one thing we did notice is, again, there are many times negative influences, whether it's a spouse, family members, things like that, drug and alcohol background, to try to get them some positive influences when they get placed into housing. We've noticed that was an important part. And the faith-based community has really stepped up in the city of Stevens Point, and Plover has really stepped up to help these people when they get placed into housing.
Supervisor Gifford.
Yeah, I just want to say, I got active in the Homeless Poverty Prevention Partnership right about the time when this was being launched. And that group has launched at least 6 other programs, I think. And I like the way you put it, that let's get something done that, you can see. And it's an example of what they call SMART goals, right? It's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, right? And I think the relevance comes from, it's relevant because people are reaching out to you from other counties, that the guy from Wood County and Clark County, workforce development, and all over the state. It must be relevant in their community too. So, I just commend you on taking a step that is a real thing that can make a difference. And then a year or two from now, step back and kind of assess it, do an assessment, and see how it went, and see what needs to be better.
Sure.
Any other questions? Anybody else? With that, thank you, Mark. Thank you. Public notice. Members of the public who wish to address the county board on specific agenda items must register their request at this time, with such comments subject to reasonable control as set of the county board chair as set forth in Robert's Rules of Order. Anyone from the public? No. Next item, confirmation of Executive Operation Committee reappointment and appointments. Motion by Supervisor Rakowski, seconded by Supervisor Gussel. Discussion. Supervisor Moresi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to propose an amendment to some committee appointments. Same as Executive Ops. I'd like to motion that we appoint Supervisor Ray Reeser to the Ag and Extension Committee and subsequently the Land and Water Committee. For those of you familiar with the Land and Water Committee, in order for the supervisor to be appointed to that committee, Land and Water, you must be a member of Ag and Extension, Planning and Zoning, Solid Waste Management, or the Parks Committee. I'm very impressed with Supervisor Reeser's qualifications. I say this because of the thorough nature of this committee request in his form, that he denoted what each committee is charged with doing, and then improved how his life's work and experience are an invaluable asset for our county. I feel that underutilizing the professional and educational skills and experience of any board member of this body would be a failure on all of our parts. I feel that we as a board would be remiss if we didn't at least have this discussion and honor his committee request. Here's a couple of his qualifications. It came on a 3-page resume, basically, of why he's qualified to be on these committees, which I was really impressed with, because most of us did not do that. He was raised on a small farm in District 25. He moved across the road literally. He represents many stakeholders from small to big farms, from Rochelle to Nelsonville. He was a member of the Board of Adjustment. He understands the complex zoning laws and how the committee process should be fair. Ray has a PhD in geoscience. He's actually a Dr. Ray Reeser. He taught geography and geology at UWSP. He understands soils, fluvial and glacial geology, present in Portage County, and hydrology and water sciences. He is our regional chief archaeologist. He volunteered his time last summer after the storms to make sure the park staff aware of all the indigenous burial mounds and locations and how to maintain and preserve them. He's familiar with state and county statutes involving groundwater. He has professional training and field experience with state statute 92 and 33 regarding groundwater conservation. He works very positively with our extension and land and water staff. I'm completely aware of how challenging this was for Chanaga and Executive Holman to figure out the logistics of committee structure and making sure that there aren't any conflicts of interest or quorum issues with other committees, and making sure that we all have about a similar amount of assigned committee assignments. Not a small task, and I do feel in this instance that there was an oversight. Supervisor Reese was clearly one of the most qualified candidates for either of these committees. He also represents District 25 in the East Corner of Portage County, which has a rich agricultural tradition. The Ag Committee has currently all 5 members are in the southern third of the county, with 3 seats in rural ag countries, including those in these other rural districts with equivalent agricultural richness, unrepresented. I also know that people would be here today if we weren't in the midst of a global pandemic. They'd be here in support of this amendment. Here's another example of why professional experience matters on the Board of Supervisors. When I look at professional experience of Supervisor Don Jankowski in particular, and what committee he sits on, I can't help but notice that he is precisely the right person for all of those committees. And it's, you know, he sits on local emergency management, public safety and communications, Portage County Safety Officer, public safety and emergency management, traffic safety. Why? Because this is what he did for his whole life. He is the embodiment of leadership for those positions. He is really something to look up to. Thank you, John. I believe we also need diversity of opinions and qualifications on each committee. Ray would be a strong, pragmatic, and offer a fair perspective with his ability to think critically and analyze data, understand complex scientific theory and practices. We need somebody who is equitable and scientifically competent on these committees. What I'm saying is that Ray, like all of us, is here to serve. And with his experience and credentials, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that we should be exploiting Ray to get as much out of him as we can, because he truly is an asset to our county board. So if you agree with this, I urge you to vote in favor of fairness and experience and vote in favor of this amendment. The tricky part of this is that how we go about this. I respect all the supervisors on this board and the duties that they hold and the service that they've given us. But I feel like it would be best served by doing this, if we would potentially remove either Matt or Barry Chakowski from an extension so that subsequently Ray could sit on to both of them.
First, I'm a little surprised, being you sit on executive ops, you had an opportunity to look at this. And when we bring it to the board now, there's a lot that does go into this, and we have to make sure we cross-reference it. First of all, I need you to repeat your motion into the mic so the people at home could hear you, because they couldn't.
Okay, sure.
So just your motion.
Just the motion.
No,
Get closer to the mic.
Can you hear me when I speak into this mic here?
Can't hear you.
okay, then you have to come up
No.
front. Just to make the motion.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Supervisor Ray Reeser to the Ag and Extension Committee and Land and Water Conservation Committee, removing either Supervisors Barry or Matt Chakowski from one or the other committees. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Supervisor, seconded by Supervisor Gifford. The one comment that I would make, and I don't know if Chris is in here because he had this is one of my appointments, but Chris and I spent a lot of time going back and forth, and I would agree that Mr. Reeser's preference papers, if you take a look at them, is 3 pages. 1 page is for planning and zoning, 1 full page is for Parks Commission, and then there's 1 page that's split up for Ag and Extension and Land and Water. And I agree that Mr. Reeser has a good thought process. We're looking forward to what he brings, but also as a new supervisor, he was seated on the Healthcare Committee, which has got a full plate in front of it, as we all know. And that's one of the reasons that he was put on that committee, was for what he brings to that committee, is his thought process and his background. Not to say that it's only in ag and extension or land and water, and he has a very good background in that, and very well educated, and we hope that he can put those skills to use in the healthcare. That was a lot of the process and the thought that was behind that, in his placing and putting him where he was. So, along with Mr. Robbie as well on the healthcare committee. So, anybody else want to speak in favor of the amendment? Supervisor Matt Jakowski, please come up to this podium if you would. So,
this mic's live. Can you hear me out there? I was told this mic is also live.
Can you hear him?
Okay. I guess since I am being one of the ones asked to leave this committee, or taken off this committee, I'd like some people to know my experience is in where I come from. To start with, I farmed in the Buena Vista, Portage County area, town of Belmont, town of Lanark. My life, 39 years. Of those 39 years, 30 years of that's been spent farming. And I'm a little taken back of this, because when Mr. Moresi first brought this up, he brought it as a personal attack. He never mentioned, as much as he did today, about Mr. Reeser's qualifications. He just said that you can't have 2 brothers sitting on the same committee. Mr. Moresi, a person who always talks about fairness and everything fair, he personally wants to discriminate me because Barry and I sit on a committee together. My district that I represent includes the Buena Vista Marsh, or a large portion of the Buena Vista Marsh, not all of it. Mr. Gussel also is part of that Buena Vista Marsh. My area is one of the largest farming areas. The town of Stockton, the town of Buena Vista, our ag land is by far one of the largest agricultural areas. My family operation I've been part of, we were one of the first in the county to unhook the plow. We did things differently. We've always done things differently. We've done things with a conservation mind. We took our operation from conventional tillage to minimum tillage to 100% no-till. I spent 10 years on the Wisconsin Conservation Congress, dealing with the same issues that we'll deal with in land and water. I've been part of land and water. I've gone to and attended many land and water meetings. I've attended many groundwater meetings. I've attended, as a supervisor, groundwater symposiums. I attend at least 5 or 6 groundwater events a year. I understand what's happening. I've been involved with this. I can't believe that Mr. Moresi is attacking me because my brother and I sit on a committee. Why didn't he pick Charlie Gussel? Why didn't he pick Dan Martinson? They're members of the committee also.
I believe it's
a personal attack.
Yeah. I believe it's because of the ag and extension background that Mr. Reeser brings, or I would hope so.
But the other people are also on that committee. And he didn't ask to have one of those removed. It was either Barry or I. It's a personal attack on our family.
I think on that committee, and let me find it, I think you have to be on another committee to be appointed to it, and you two are on Ag and Extension. Charlie might be on there because of,
Charlie is also on Ag and Extension.
yeah, but he's not
Daniel
on
Martinson is also on Ag and Extension.
Ag and Extension. It must be Land and Water then. On the Land and Water Conservation, Matt and Barry are Ag and Extension, Mildred's Parks, Zastro is Solid Waste, and Moore is Planning and Zoning.
Yeah.
Vincent, you were talking about taking someone off of Ag and Extension so that you could put them on Land and Water as well? Was that the motion?
That was the motion.
Dave, did you have a comment?
Ray had his hand up and Julie had her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Reeser, Supervisor Reeser?
If I could, I'd like to make a couple comments. Can I make it from back here, or would you like?
I don't think the people from at home can hear you in this environment.
No, we can't.
Back there also.
Oh, there's one back there next time, so.
So many of you don't know me well. I've logged 3 hours and 40 minutes as a supervisor, but I have decades of experience answering questions and fielding scientific queries all over Portage County. I looked at the committee assignments carefully, and I tried to match as best I could my skill sets and qualifications for those committees. I also tried to honor the 720-some people who voted for me out in my district. Well over 50% of those people called me and asked me if I would serve on the county board. And it is an honor to serve on the county board. And I would be honored to serve on any county committee for this board. But in an attempt to honor those people who voted for me in my district, I was specifically asked to sit on those committees. And I do believe that my expertise would be suitable to making progress on those committees. Again, I'd be honored to sit on any committee for Portage County. I do have to admit to being a bit puzzled by the choices, and that's in due deference to you, Al. I know how difficult these decisions are. I know there's quorum issues. I know that committees have to be filled and that they merit as best representation as they can. But in my 65 years as an educator and a consultant at the private, state, and federal level, I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've looked at lots of qualifications. And I do believe that my qualifications stand up pretty well for those committees. Again, I'm happy to serve on whatever committee I'm appointed to. Thank you.
Supervisor Moore.
I'll just say, I don't need to come up there, it's not this complicated, that Barry could be the planning and zoning member, and I'll bow out if Dr. Reeser could be on the committee. Because I agree with the principle, but I understand it seems divisive to select somebody. But I'm the planning and zoning member, I'll bow out. Barry could be the planning and zoning member, and Dr. Reeser could have my spot.
We hear you, Supervisor.
Can you hear me, Stan?
I can hear you very well.
Supervisor Moore said that she would be willing to step out of Land and Water Conservation Committee and replace her with Barry Jakowski, so that if Barry was removed as the Ag and Extension member, that she could put Mr. Reeser in that spot.
Well,
right. The other one would be Matt. Matt would stay.
I think we have a motion and a second that,
Yeah, I know we're stacking them up. I'm just telling you what her motion was, Stan. Or what her comment was.
all right, thank you.
Yep. Supervisor Barry Jakowski. Didn't you have your hand up? You wanted to say something?
Correct.
Oh.
But I guess the Supervisor Morrow was saying that that I would play a dual role. I don't think that works as a committee.
Maybe it doesn't, I'm sorry.
Supervisor Dubek.
Who would Dr. Reese replace on a extension? If he doesn't replace one of Matt Riveri, who he replaces the question? Could be somebody else besides Matt Riveri? Or doesn't he have to be on that committee to get on to the land and water?
Can you repeat that comment, Al?
Chris, come up and use the podium, please. I'm gonna have to ask everybody to use the podium and going forward, because it's your words, not mine.
If we want to get Dr. Reeser on the Ag and Extension Committee and the Land Water Committee, does he have to replace Matt or Barry? Can he replace somebody else, either Charlie, Dan, or Antone, to do that?
Supervisor Soik. You can use the podium in the back too if you'd like.
I believe we're getting ahead of ourselves on this conversation. The motion on the floor was to have somebody removed. It was seconded. I think we need to go back to that discussion before we start trying to figure out who we're going to replace with who if we haven't even removed anybody. The motion was to remove. I think we need to go back to that conversation, stop the discussion on who we're going to put where, figure out what we're going to do with the motion on hand, go from there. I, too, in my 46 years, have seen a lot of different things, and I did not get all the committees I wanted, but to sit back and look at the leadership that is in this room moving forward can be very revealing.
Supervisor Splinter.
I won't. Excuse my position, but I think it's excusable. This is my third term on the board. I've never seen, discussions like this after the executive ops who we voted last meeting as our probably most wisest leaders on the board, which I still think is what they always should be. And for them to go through a weeks-long process of sorting out who is on what committee, which is a huge puzzle, and are you going to get everything exactly perfect? No. But it would be like, say, I'm over 65 and I got a disability, and say I wanted to be on the Age and Disability Committee, which I am, by the way, but in case I wasn't, I would, start coming up there and saying, well, I'm more qualified than anybody else in the room to be on this board, and I want somebody to drop off just because either they're a brother or whatever else. I don't like, because this opens your can of worms technically for every committee, and all of a sudden we could be here all night technically and arguing over committee assignments. I would hope maybe Mr. Supervisor Maurice would maybe withdraw his motion, trust that the committee he's on, the Executive Ops Committee, made a good choice, and in the future Mr. Reeser could be considered maybe in the next term, or even come in and be an advisor to that board with all his past experience. So I just like to say, I think we're opening a can of worms, which I've never seen open before, so I would hope that maybe Mr. Maurice would withdraw his amendment. Thank you.
One other thing I want to state is on your committee appointment preferences, the second paragraph, please note that this preference sheet is for an advisory purpose, as it is the authority of the 2022 Executive Operation Committees to recommend designated committee appointments to the county board for approval. The committee may consider all requests and qualifications, but cannot guarantee that all such requests will be honored. And again, I stated that he does have a strong background. He's a new supervisor, and he was put on the healthcare center because of those strengths. There was other folks too that were looked at for other committees, but as we go around, it's good for us to get people on other committees. As I had stated before, a lot of people that haven't been on solid waste think the garbage goes in the truck and then we go bury it somewhere. That's not the case. There's a lot that happens in between there. Same with highway. They're complicated businesses, and once you get into that committee, you start to learn a lot about it. So, and the fact that once we have a motion in a second, but I don't believe that the motion was even complete because of the fact that it didn't call out which person. It was giving us an option. So the question was to put Mr. Reesier on there, but to take off either Matt or Barry. So I guess I go back to Mr. Moresi to clarify his motion. Supervisor Barry Jakowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I ask what the vote was at Executive Ops on these two committees?
It passed.
Was there a number of votes?
Unanimous. If I remember anybody from Executive Ops, yes, it was unanimous, and that's where I said I was surprised that it was brought back here. So, Supervisor Dodge, I don't know if they're going to hear you at home, Jeannie.
I think that mic is live as well.
Is it live?
It's live.
I guess I would just say that I would vote against the amendment until I speak to different people. I was not aware that this was an issue. And as I remember, most times when committees are switched, it's midterm when there's an issue that comes up, or if someone through illness can't finish their committee.
Reappointed.
You make switches. I don't think it's appropriate to be doing this today.
Supervisor Johnson at home.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the discussion. And I apologize if my dogs are barking in the background, but someone's walking the dog on Division Street. What can I say? My apologies. I think now is an appropriate time to have the discussion, and that's what we are. We're a deliberative body, right? This is what we should be doing. I think I'm approaching this from a little bit different perspective. I support the motion, and Dr. Reeser's credentials are great, and Matt's credential as a farmer is clear. But I'm looking at it more from the county as different areas, and the region of New Hope and into the town of Elben is really a unique area when it comes to farming, and having representation from that area. We have a lot from our Central Sands area, and that's wonderful. It's big. It is the potato basket of the world, let's put it that way. But it really is a different sort of ball game than the unique challenges faced on the end moraine. And that's why I think having that diversity on either ag and extension or land and water conservation really provides a breadth of experience that could be very important. I think there's a frustration. We have great credentials throughout our organization, and that's a good thing. I have a degree in planning. I have asked 3 terms in a row to be placed on planning and zoning. In fact, I got nearly a 4.0 in planning, and I haven't been placed on that committee. I'm not sure if I'm not qualified enough, but that is a frustration. So I think, and actually, when my first term on Executive Ops, so 2 years ago, I challenged at the committee meeting the fact that Supervisor Moresi wasn't on Space and Properties, a gentleman who has a business of building. So I think, and I understand the complications of trying to fit everybody where they're best utilized, but having this conversation is very important, and we shouldn't shy away from it. So I will support it based on the idea of trying to create more representation from our farming and ag and agrarian industry that represents the breadth of very unique characteristics of our county. Thank you.
Supervisor Barry Jakowski.
Mr. Chair, thank you.
I don't think they're going to hear you at home.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I would just like to say that the area I represent and farm is, and it's very uniquely different from the area that Matt represents and does part of his farming in. So that argument doesn't hold water when Supervisor Johnson says that it's different, a different spread of, in a different spread of farming or different farming activities, because farming throughout the county is different. I do not represent the Central Sands area. I represent the town of Lanark, the town of Belmont, and the town of Almond, which is significantly different and farmed differently than the Central Sands of the Plover, Buena Vista, and the Buena Vista Marsh area. So thank you.
Anybody else have any other comments? Supervisor Robbie.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I just hope we vote on this amendment, and then once the amendment passes or fails, I hope there's not further discussion on how we try to appease the intent of the original amendment. So I would like to see us vote on it and then kind of go on from there. And I'm a little surprised also. I guess I have to say this. I thought there was a tinge last week in our conversations of some personal issues coming to the front. And now I'm not sure that we don't see some kind of a personnel issue here. And it's a little sad in my opinion. I don't know any of you really, really well, but I have a high regard and respect for every one of you and what you bring to this group. And while philosophically and politically and in a lot of different ways I might differ, I still respect all of you. And what I've seen the last couple of weeks is really kind of sad, in my opinion, because it kind of boils over that one of the things, the strength of this group, of a community group like this, is that we're really in it for the community. And it's really about our serving each other. And when we have, at the state level, the federal level, we see some of that divisiveness, and we say, well, that's not, that's just politics. And yet, in our own forum here, we're seeing some of the same things, and I think it's a little disturbing for me personally. I am not going to support the amendment, only because I truly believe that the time to discuss that would have been an executive ops. That would be the time to give that input, and I don't like the fact that it's playing out here the way it is now. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Supervisor Soik.
All right, when we get to the point of calling the vote here, what is the precedence for overturning the Executive Ops Committee? Is it a supermajority or is it a simple majority? Because I don't believe it should be a simple majority. If we are truly going to overturn the Executive Ops Committee's decision that was voted unanimously, I think it should be a 2/3, unless we have some precedence in the past that states that it's a simple majority. From what I've been hearing, I don't think we have a precedence in the past, and I think we need to set one if we're going to try and overturn the Executive Ops Committee. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Supervisor Pataki.
In the 14 years that I have been on the county board, this is the first time that there ever has been a question on the county board floor. If there were any changes that were made or requested to be made, they were made at the executive ops meeting, and that gave the county board chairman time enough to figure out where other people could be switched to. In the 59 or 50-some years, and I was actually 37 years with the sheriff's department. I was chief deputy. I came to meetings. And so that's prior to me being on a county board. There was never a time that something like this has ever happened on a county board before.
Supervisor Gussel.
The word can of worms was mentioned. And that's not a can of worms you're opening, it's a truckload of worms. You're going to be doing this with every cotton picking appointment that's made. It's going to come back and haunt you. I think we're making a mistake here. Thank you.
Supervisor Moresi.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear that I did bring this up at Executive Ops, and there was discussion about this. I did vote for the committee appointments because in the large majority of those appointments, I feel are utilizing people in their best capacity. In this particular appointment, I do not. It can be done a variety of ways, should we choose to do it. But I want to be very clear that I did bring this up at the meeting, and we did discuss it. So I hope that people don't think I'm trying to pull a fast one here. I'm just being very hyper particular about this one because I really do believe in Ray's qualifications. Not to say that they're any better or lesser than Supervisor Machikowski's qualifications. I'm very impressed with what I just heard him say tonight. I wish that he would have wrote all of that on his qualification sheet.
It is.
Partially.
Okay.
I'm more impressed with what he said tonight, and I thank him for that. So that's where I stand. Would you like a clarification on the amendment?
Yes.
Then the clarification would be, I'd make a motion to appoint Supervisor Ray Reeser to the Agriculture and Extension Committee and subsequently the Land and Water Conservation Committee, removing Barry Jakowski from those committees.
And not picking on Mr. Reeser, but what about Park and Planning and Zoning for Mr. Reeser? He's got very good qualifications in those as well.
It would be fantastic. I'll just have different people mad at me.
So.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Machikowski.
Mr. Chair, I just want to go back a little bit in history because everything goes back to our past and we learn and live from our past. 2 years ago, I attended an Executive Ops Committee meeting. I think your first Executive Ops Committee meeting as chair. And at that point in time, if anybody would like to look back in the minutes or some of you may remember, I know I remember, I'm not that old yet. And some of you that are older than me probably have a better memory than me. But I remember sitting at that Executive Ops Committee meeting, and Mr. Moresi, Supervisor Moresi, felt slighted that he didn't have enough committees. Thought he should be on a few committees. I graciously gave up my solid waste position as a compromise, or I felt that, hey, Mr. Moresi, I think at the time had 2 committees, maybe 3, and was looking for another one. And at that time, I had maybe 4 or 5. I'd have to look back on the exact numbers. But I said, you know what? If Mr. Moresi would like another committee, if he would be happy serving on solid waste, I would gladly give that up. And that worked through at the committee level. I know the decision was made. I was removed from solid waste. You know what? I like being on solid waste. It directly affected my township. It affected my people. It's very close to where I live. It's not quite in my district, but really close to my district, the transfer facility and the MRF. And I learned a lot more about garbage than I thought I ever would know, and recyclables.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to serve it while the times were good and we were actually getting money for recyclables.
Right.
Wish we could say that now. But it seems some people have short memories.
One of the other things that Supervisor Jakowski brought up was that when we went through this, we actually, Lee made a sheet for me to try and help and make sure that I was fair with the amount of committees that everybody had so that it wasn't slighted one way or another or somebody didn't have two committees unless they wanted to have two committees. There were some people that had 4 committees and asked to have that down to 3. Those wishes were honored. So, as we go on and we go through this, it's like, and we had a day and a half for the 2 of us to put this together. So, if there are some missteps, it's very easy to understand. But, Mildred, did you have, Supervisor Neville, you had your hand up? After Mildred, Stan, did you want to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm on the Parks Committee, and I think by virtue of being on Parks, I'm on to, or this isn't why I'm on Land and Water Conservation, but I'm on Land and Water Conservation, and there needs to be a representative from Parks, which I'm on. I would be glad to give both of those committees to Dr. Reeser. I think his qualifications for land and water conservation probably exceed mine, probably being a mild statement. But I understand that it's difficult to make the committees, and I also think it's a loss to the community if we have someone very highly qualified in something and don't take advantage of it. So I just wanted to add that to the discussion. Thank you.
So, yeah. Supervisor Pataki.
Mr. Chairman, and I also believe that Mr. Reeser has a lot of expertise in those 2 committees. I have a question for Supervisor Martinson, and I also have a question for Supervisor Gusso. Supervisor Gusso, have you ever worked on a farm, or if you have, how long have you worked on a farm?
How long have you been working on a farm, Charlie? Or have you ever?
I was born and raised on a farm.
He was born and raised on a farm.
Still
farm.
Still on the same farm.
Still on the same farm.
Okay, how about Mr. Martinson?
Stan, I will freely admit I'm the least qualified person on that committee to be on that committee.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? The answer is no. I haven't.
Okay, I'm not picking on you.
No, I know you're not. I have a pretty nice garden, though.
That counts.
My question then is to Mr. Moresi, all right? Why did you pick Mr. Mads Zukowski to be off of the committee, and now out who had the least amount of experience, and asked that person be taken off?
Barry. For clarification, I made him clarify his motion, and it was to take Barry off. Mr. Moresi, yes, you can respond.
My reasoning behind that, first I'd like to clarify one thing. The meeting that Matt was referring to, that he said I felt slighted for not getting to my committees last term, I was never at. Actually, I saw Supervisor Johnson on a video recording by the Point Plover Metro Wire advocating on my behalf, and that's how I knew about what happened. So I was never at that meeting, though I am incredibly grateful for Matt for bowing out of solid waste so that I could have a crack at it, and I'm enjoying it very much. So thank you, Supervisor Jakowski. Supervisor Pataki, I personally feel that having 2 members of the same family could be a conflict of interest to have them on the Ag and Extension Committee. It's a powerful ag family involved with the groundwater resources, and I think that that could be not in the best interest of our county, to be completely honest with you.
Okay, may I speak, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Supervisor Pataki.
My brother and I were on the Sheriff's Department for over 30 years. We never had a problem. And remember, we're dealing with life and death in a lot of situations. We had other brothers and cousins who were together on the sheriff's department. We never had a problem. We never had a conflict of interest. So we all had a job to do, and we did it. And with the two Jakowskis being on one committee, they all have different ideas. Right? They're not like these twins that when one gets an itch, the other one scratches it, right?
I guess I would just say to the brother, they were elected by each of their districts. Could have cousins on here. We could have a lot of different things. We could have close friends. Some of you folks are close friends. So I don't know if that makes a difference or not. It's the hand that we were dealt, and the Jakowski brothers were both elected by their constituents. So, Barry, did you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, yes, if I was to be removed, I was wondering which committees I would serve on.
Good question. County Exec Holman, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. It does seem like the proverbial horse is being beat on the particular motion, so I think Supervisor Swig's earlier comments bear some repeating there. But I did want to note also that it's not an ethical situation or conflict of interest with the brothers being on the board. I think you can, if you looked towards the state guidelines on ethics and conflicts like this, you would find that to be true. Aside from the motion, I just wanted to note that I did some quick math just aside from it, and both the proposal from Supervisor Morrow or Supervisor Neville do not create a quorum if that sort of change was to switch. The only question I would raise is that
Don't step on your...
if you were to switch people out of different standing committees, that there's not necessarily a guarantee that these committees would then elect the same people to the board to the committee, unless we're saying that the names that we're putting on the list today are those that should be there. So at the end of the day, there's no quorum issue for the two other proposals we heard, and I just throw that out there because it's a point to consider should that be entertained.
Supervisor Barry Jakowski.
Could I call for the vote, please, Mr. Chair?
We have a motion and a second to put Mr. Reeser in place of Barry on Land and Water and Ag and Extension. And with that, there's no more discussion. The clerk will call the roll.
Jeannie Dodge.
Excuse me, Mr. Could you clarify what the vote will be, please?
I just did. I clarified that taking Barry Jakowski off of Ag and Extension and Land and Water and replacing him with Mr. Reeser.
Just to clarify, Mr. Chair, then a yes would be to remove me, a no would be to...
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes. A yes would be to remove Barry. Go ahead.
Okay. Jeannie Dodge.
No.
Bob Gifford.
Yes.
Scott Soik.
No.
Mildred Neville.
Yes.
Al Haga.
No.
Charlie Gussel. No. Barry Jakowski.
No.
Stan Pataki.
No.
That was a no.
No.
That was a no, yes.
Okay. Dave Laddick.
No.
Larry Rakowski.
No.
Jerry Zastro.
I am torn because I believe we need to rotate people. I'm going to say yes.
Dan Martinson.
No.
Mike Splinter.
No.
Chris Dubek.
No.
Dennis Robbie.
No.
Anton Ande.
No.
Joan Honnell. Joan Honnell. Did she say yes?
I think she's muted.
Can she hear?
Go ahead, Joan. Go to the next one. We'll come back to Joan.
Okay. Matt Jakowski.
No.
Julie Morrow. Dave Medine. Chai Mua. Vinnie Moresi. Don Jankowski.
No.
Ray Reeser.
I'm not sure I should be allowed
Do you want to abstain? Okay. Melissa Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, so
We're
we just need Joan. Joan
we're-
Honnell.
Yes, we're chatting back and forth with Joan right now to try and get an answer, so. Technical difficulties.
Tell her to write it on a piece of paper and hold it up to the camera.
Call her on the phone.
Does it count if she shakes her head, yes or no?
Tell Joan to write, Joan, can you write it on a piece of paper and hold it up, yes or no?
Well, she can hear
He's
it.
reaching. I saw the sticky note.
Now, can we see it?
Hold it up in front of your face, please.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, I got it, Joan.
Okay, so 7 in favor, 17 against, 1 abstained. Motion fails.
Okay, back to the original, Executive Operation Committee appointments. We have another amendment. This one hopefully will be an easier one. Supervisor Laddick.
This is an easy one. Orange County Transportation Coordinating Committee, 3.
Speak into the mic, please.
Okay, this is in reference to the Portage County Transportation Coordinating Committee, 3.1.25. Dennis Robbie has agreed to take charge, being the Finance Committee member on that committee in place of myself. And that is mutually agreed upon by both of us.
So I have a motion by Supervisor Laddick, seconded by Supervisor Jankowski. Any discussion? Anybody at home have any discussion? The motion was to remove Mr. Laddick from the Transportation Committee and appoint Mr. Robbie. They both have agreed on it. He has to be someone from the Finance Committee. Mr. Laddick was on there the last 2 years. Mr. Robbie's going to be the new person in there. So we have a motion and a second. No other discussion? I'll take a voice call if that's fine with everybody. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Joan saying yes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Joan. Motion is, amendment is approved. Back to the original, Executive Operation Committee's appointments with the amendment of Mr. Laddick and Mr. Robbie. If there's no other questions, comments, or concerns or discussion, I'll take a voice vote on that. We better take a roll call on that. We'll take a roll call. Clerk, call the roll.
Chris Stubek. Aye. Ray Reeser. Barry Jakowski.
Aye.
Matt Jakowski.
Aye.
Melissa Johnson.
Johnson, not Johnson.
Melissa Johnson. Okay, maybe I'll come back.
Go back, yeah.
Okay.
We'll come back to Melissa.
Okay, Joan Honnell.
Let's Joan hold
Yes.
up. Yes. We got you down for a yes, Joan. Thank you.
Julie Morrow. Dennis Robbie. Bob Gifford. Dan Martinson.
Yes.
Jerry Zastro.
Yes.
Jerry Zastro.
Yes again.
Oh. Okay. Scott Stoik. Don Jankowski.
Yes.
Dave Laddick.
Yes.
Mike Splinter.
Yes.
Dave Medine. Chai Mua. Vinnie Moresi. Stan Pataki.
Aye.
Anton Ande. Mildred Neville.
Yes.
Jeannie Dodge.
Aye.
Charlie Gussel. Al Haga.
Yes.
Larry Rakowski.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have Melissa back yet? Okay. Oh,
We put absent.
okay.
She disconnected. Yeah. I don't know how to.
Okay. We'll just
Yep.
call it. Okay. 24 in favor, 1 absent or disconnected.
Motion carried.
Motion adopted.
Confirmation of the county executive, reappointments and appointments. If there's no objections, I will take them all in one motion as is printed and stated. Motion by Supervisor Laddick, seconded by Supervisor, Barry Jakowski. Any other discussion? All those in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Appointments, reappointments and appointments, motion carries. Resolution number 1, Next Gen 911 Reimbursement Grant Program.
Resolution number 2, 2020-2022, submitted by Chris Holman, County Exec, and Al Haga, County Board Chair, as set forth in Portage County State of Emergency Executive Order 2020-5. This resolution approves the acceptance of the Next Generation 911 reimbursement grant and approves the budget adjustment to the capital projects budget. This resolution requires a 2/3 supermajority vote.
I'll take a motion. Motion by Supervisor Dodge, seconded by Supervisor Moore. This has Chris and I's signature on it. It was one of those that was running through the system. It's got a 90-day timeline on it, so it was kind of time sensitive. The sheriff reached out to us. We had him contact his chair, and then they went through their committee, and they all got to look at it with no objections. Chris and I signed it. I wanted you folks all to know that. I believe I told everyone that when I talked before briefly how we were moving this process forward, so that they understand that there was still county board or committee oversight to some respect. So, we have a motion and a second? Yeah, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussions, comments, concerns? Supervisor Barry Jakowski.
I would just like to thank both yourself and Executive Holman and the sheriff for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? With that, the clerk will call the roll.
Chaimua. Al Haga.
Aye.
Julie Morrow. Anton Ande. Stan Pataki.
Aye.
Chris Dubek. Dennis Robbie. Is Melissa still gone?
Go to the next one.
Charlie Gussel. Ray Reeser. Mike Splinter. Jeannie Dodge. Matt Jakowski.
Aye.
Don Jankowski. Barry Jakowski.
Aye.
Scott Soik. Bob Gifford. Dave Laddick. Mildred Neville. Larry Rakowski. Jerry Zastro.
Aye.
Aye. Dan Martinson.
Aye.
Dave Medine. Vinnie Moresi. Joan Hunnell. Yes. Melissa? No Melissa. Okay, so 24 in favor, 1 absent, resolution adopted.
Take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Supervisor Barry Jakowski, seconded by Supervisor Neville. All in favor with aye? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.